So a common question that gets asked whenever you're running an MNVD, which is a monocular night vision device, is which eye do you run it on? Do you run it on your dominant eye or your non-dominant eye? And because this is a single tube versus a dual tube binocular night vision system, we kind of have to figure out the pros and cons of each eye to kind of determine what's going to work best for us. Now, the short answer to the question on which eye you should run it on is that you just kind of have to go out to the range and the woods and kind of walk around your neighborhood, do whatever you got to do to kind of figure out what works best for you. Because everyone's eyes are different, everyone's brains process things differently, so what works for me may not work for you. So you kind of have to go out and test it out for yourself and kind of figure that out for yourself. Now, there are a few things that we kind of have to keep into account, some objective data that I have kind of collected from my personal training that we can kind of keep in mind when we're deciding these things. Now, what I typically recommend to people is to run it on your dominant eye. So I'm left-handed, I run it on my left eye, which is my dominant eye. And I have a few reasons for that. So first off, for me personally, my left eye, my dominant eye processes things a lot quicker than my non-dominant eye, right? My depth perception is a little better, especially when you're running a single tube. Your depth perception is kind of weird, it's kind of off a little bit. So I'm able to process things faster. I'm able to have a little bit better depth perception because it's my dominant eye. It's a little bit stronger. So especially, and this really comes into play when you start walking through the woods where it's not even terrain, and you start running around a lot, especially when you're shooting. It also comes into play when you're having to process a lot more information. So if you're working on, positive ID, reading, writing, all type of other admin tasks that you might have to do. For me personally, I find that for most people, it works better when it's on your dominant eye because it's your dominant eye, right? If you were to go point your finger at something and you close one eye, it's going to be your dominant eye that kind of is the focal point because it's the eye that kind of takes over, right? Now, when it comes to shooting, right, when does it start to matter? Well, when you're running a primary rifle, typically you're going to have to use some sort of active aiming system, something like an IR laser, okay? Because passive aiming with a PVS14 single tube night vision device, it just doesn't work super great. Yeah, it can be done, right? If you're sitting on a bench and you have perfect sight alignment, perfect sight picture, and you have a high contrast target downrange, yeah, you can put accurate shots on it. But when you start running around, running and gunning, because you have one optic that you're looking through with a limited field of view, and then you're looking through another optic with a limited field of view, you really lose all type of situational awareness, and you're kind of just hunting through two optics at that point, and it's just not great. It just doesn't work. So passive aiming, looking through a red dot under your night vision with no IR laser, it doesn't work with a PVS14. It's just not really going to work for you. Now, so we're going to have to run some sort of an IR laser, okay? Now, when we're running an IR laser, whether it's our dominant eye, non-dominant eye, it's not really going to matter because we're not dealing with anything close to our faces. We're not dealing with any focal points or parallax or anything like that. We're focusing on something downrange, right? So whether it's your dominant eye, non-dominant eye, it's not really going to matter. Now, for me personally, I'm able to have a little bit quicker target acquisition when I am running it on my dominant eye because it's my stronger eye. It's what I can pick up things a little quicker and process things a little faster. Now, what about shooting with handguns? Now, shooting red dots on handguns is the best way to shoot handguns under night vision. If you disagree with that, you clearly haven't been shooting handguns under night vision enough because, it's the truth. And anyone that has been there, done that will agree with that. So, red dots on handguns. If you're going to want to engage a target accurately and quickly with a single tube night vision device, you're going to have to run it on your dominant eye because that's the eye that you use when you're shooting your handgun in the daytime, right? It's the eye, even though you may be shooting with both eyes open, one eye is going to be focused in on the target with superimposing the dot on the target, right? So for me, that's my left eye. Some people are cross-eyed dominant, right? So maybe you're right-handed and you have left eye dominant. It's cross-eyed dominant. That's where you're going to want it if you're shooting a handgun, if you're shooting a red dot. Now, the argument could be made, yeah, if you're running an IR laser on a handgun, then it wouldn't matter as much, right? And that's true. And we'll get to that when we talk about our non-dominant side. But red dots are my preferred method of shooting with handguns, and in order to do that accurately and consistently, you're going to have to run on your dominant eye. Now, what about when we're trying to switch to white light, right? Maybe you're going into a situation where you're going to have to switch to white light in a moment's notice. Can you do that with your dominant eye, right? Because our dominant eye is covered. What happens if we have to go to white light? We can go to white light. However, if we go to white light, our IR lasers aren't going to work as well. And so if we go to white light, we want to use our normal optics. How do we get this thing out of the way? Well, the way I would do it on my non-dominant eye is the same way I would do it if I was running my normal dual tube DT-NVGs. And that's simply by just clicking my Wilcox G24 mount, flipping it up and locking it, and being able and going right to white light and just shooting through my optic the way I normally would. I have tested this. I can do it in about 2 seconds. I can go from IR laser to white light through my optic in about 2 seconds. So that's pretty fast. However, in some situations it may not be fast enough, but that's what I found works best for me. Now, what if you would like to run it on your non-dominant eye? So for me, that's my right eye. There's a few reasons why you may want to run it on this side. Now, like I said before, you're going to have to go out to the range and kind of test this for yourself and see how this works for you. Some people, a huge reason why you may run on your non-dominant eye is simply because you just maybe process things better, you're more comfortable, your depth perception's better in your non-dominant eye. That just may be the way your brain operates, the way your eyes work, and everyone's eyes are different. And so the only way you're going to know that is if you go to the range, you go to the woods, you walk around, and you test this out for yourself. Now, like I said before, with our primary rifle, right, if you have an IR laser, it's not really going to matter whether or not you have a left eye, rather if you have it on your dominant eye or non-dominant eye, because we're not focusing on any, we don't have any focal points in front of us or parallax. We're just looking at a laser down range, and there's no issues there. Now, shooting handguns. This is where it starts to become a little problematic. If we're going to be shooting a handgun with our non-dominant eye, we're going to need something like an IR laser. We're going to need some sort of active aiming solution, which is going to be an IR laser, right? Because red dots aren't going to work. Because if you're running on your non-dominant eye and you go to present your gun with a red dot, you're going to have to shoot CrossEyed Dominant. And if you're not used to that, if you have not trained that, it's not going to work very well, and you're not going to be consistent. And consistency is huge. That's what we want when we're shooting. So I personally don't train CrossEyed Dominant very much, so shooting a handgun with a PVS14 on my non-dominant eye, it doesn't work great, and I'm not able to be very consistent with it. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you're running an IR laser on your handgun, which for me personally, I just don't really prefer. I've tested both of them out. I just prefer red dots in just about every way than an IR laser. However, if you are running an IR laser, if you're running it on your non-dominant eye, that'll work for you. Now, what about other situations where running on your non-dominant eye will be a little bit more advantageous? That's going to be switching to white light, switching to a visible light, so like a weapon-mounted light. That's where you're going to really start to see the benefits of running it on your non-dominant eye. When I'm running on my dominant eye, flipping it out of the way, or maybe moving my helmet out of the way or whatever, I'm able to do that in about 2 seconds. Well, going from my non-dominant eye IR laser to white light, I'm able to do it in about half a second. So I'm able to do it about 1.5 seconds faster, simply because I don't have to fiddle with any gadgets up here. I can simply be shooting with an IR laser with my right eye, my non-dominant eye, and if I need to go to white light, I can simply use my dominant eye to look through my optic and shoot through white light the way I normally would in regular low light training or daytime shooting, right? So that's something that you kind of have to keep in mind. You're also going to see that with handguns. If you're running an IR laser and illuminator, switching to white light, you're going to be able to engage very quickly and accurately with your left eye or your dominant eye being unobstructed by any night vision devices. However, the caveat to that is if you have an IR laser and illuminator unit on your pistol, you're going to need to switch a little lever or a little button to switch it to white light, unless there's a specific button that you can do all three or both of them. In which case, at what point are you saving time when you could be running on your dominant eye, flipping it out of the way? I don't know. Once again, with your specific equipment and your specific, person, you're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Now, final reason why you might be running it on your non-dominant eye that might be beneficial is if for some weird reason you're still running irons. If you're still running irons on your handgun, or even your rifle for that matter, using your non-dominant eye with a PVS14 is probably going to be a little bit more advantageous, because under night vision you can't use iron sights. Anyone that's used night vision before will tell you you can't use iron sights under night vision. It just doesn't work, because you're dealing with focal points, and we're looking through an optic that you're only able to adjust to a single focal point. So that's not really going to work. However, like I said before, if we're transitioning to white light, instead of having to get PVS14 or dual tubes out of the way in order to use my irons under white light, I'm able to engage with my left eye, and because it's unobstructed with any night vision devices, and be able to use that without having to fiddle with anything up here. So guys, those are some of the data points and some of the experimentation things that I have done to kind of find what works best for me, and some of the different things equipment-wise that you kind of have to think about. But ultimately, guys, I've said this before, and I'll say this till I'm dead: training is what matters. You could have the most Gucci PVS31 white phosphor dual tube night vision devices, but if you don't know how to use them, you don't know how to train, it really is not going to amount to much. So guys, get out, train hard, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.